Ladies, gentlemen, and pals of all ages, it's been nearly a year since the beginning of early access for Palworld, and in that time, quite a lot has changed. Over time, players have worked harder and harder to maximize their PAL lineups, with some players having a focus on absolute perfect optimization. And as more updates have come out, these choices have changed because more PALs have been released, and some of the functions around them have changed too. Of course, a lot of players will generally prefer playing with the PALs that they like conceptually, but for anyone looking for some just stupidly powerful PALs to use as a base, as far as making the game easier just from this simple choice, this video is for you. Today we'll be talking about the best PALs for each typing, so you can super affect any enemy of note by taking advantage of this. And we'll also go over the concept of passive party boosting specific PALs too, as they are quite strong within their own right. First things first though, today will be about the specific PALs and how to get them for yourself, but as far as actually making the PAL powerful past that, we have a full guide video on the channel of how to maximize player and PAL power in the Feybreak update if you want to check that out for more information on that side of things. First up then, let's talk about the best grass type PAL with Lylene. Grass is one of the more limited typings when looking for a pure combat PAL within the game, but the partner skill that Lylene has can heal the player, which is a nice bonus. It is less important than it used to be due to newer consumables in the game, and there is also the ability, Bountiful Protection, that Lylene has and can use to heal itself in combat, which is useful as well. Other than that, it just has good enough stats and abilities to overcome the rest of the grass type roster, simple as that. The easiest, earliest way to get Lylene is by breeding together Petalia, who can be found on Wildlife Sanctuary number 1, and Mossanda, who can be found all over this middle island here in the map. Otherwise, Lylene itself can also be found on Wildlife Sanctuary number 3 later on. Second, we've got ground type PALs, and the classic recommendation for this would be Anubis, but I actually lean more towards Knocklimb now. This PAL is physically larger, so it does get hit by more attacks, but it has more pure ground output potential overall, as well as bonus defensive potential due to the partner skill that just raises attack and defense for a period of time after activating. Of course, this also gets stronger with each star rank of condensing too. This also makes it a great PAL to just throw out and sort of soak up damage and tank attention while you damage enemies yourself as the player too, as player damage is very strong in Palworld. There is a level 55 alpha version of Knocklimb that you can catch on Sakurajima. Otherwise, an easy earlier breeding combination to make this is Warsect, who has a level 30 alpha boss version, combined with either Grisbolt from Wildlife Sanctuary number 1, or just a regular Hellzephyr. If you find that in the wild, it's just another combo option with Warsect for this. After that, we've got electric type PALs, which the ground PALs are strong against, of course, and I've got one that goes a touch against the grain here, but I'm a massive fan of Hellzephyr Lux. The stats on this PAL are a little bit lower than Ozurk, which is the general usual best call here, but I lean towards Hellzephyr Lux because the partner skill changes player damage to electric while you're riding it, and while changing player damage doesn't necessarily count as extra PAL damage, it does increase your output potential against PALs that are weak to that element type. So for the purpose of actual combat out in the field and what this video is all about, Hellzephyr Lux is better against things that are weak to electric types than any other electric type. Hellzephyr Lux can be bred into relatively early through the combination of the standard Hellzephyr as well as Beacon, who has a pretty low level alpha boss version that you can find early too. Moving on then, we have water type PALs of note, and there are two extremely comparable PALs depending on your preferences. They have very similar stats with some differences. These are Yormintide, who has always been the classically strongest water PAL, and who also got a new PAL exclusive skill recently called Slither Slam, and this attack isn't bad at all. And there's also Phalaris Aqua, who is a new PAL in the mix, lower stat potential, but both flying and smaller size makes it soak up less damage in general while it is out fighting, and its PAL exclusive skill is also quite strong too. To get Yormintide, the easiest early combo for breeding is Grisbolt, who spawns at Wildlife Sanctuary number 1, and Nightwing, who is a very common early bird PAL. As for Phalaris Aqua, that is just the combination of Yormintide itself and regular Phalaris. Then next up we have fire type PALs, and I've come to the point where the best fire PAL in my eyes is simply Blazamut. Yormintide Ignis is a pretty close second as far as pure stats, but I much prefer Blazamut's PAL exclusive fire skills, and that combined with it boosting fire damage while being ridden as its partner skill makes it stronger than the average PAL would be of the same stat line anyways to begin with, so it is pretty and arguably just the best one as long as you actually have it out in your party. To get Blazamut as early as possible, technically speaking, would use regular Belanoir from the lower level raid version of that PAL, combined with Suzaku spawning in the northeastern desert island. After that then we have Ice PALs, and the generally strongest one for combat purposes is Frostallion, having both great stats to begin with, and starting off with Legend as a passive when caught as an alpha boss. This PAL also changes player damage to ice when ridden, which it does count as an overall increase to your output and damage that comes directly from using the PAL itself, at least when fighting PALs that are weak to ice, and this is a very very meaty bonus if you have it on. It's also worth mentioning, however, that Bastigor is arguably a better ice pal for moments that you want a strong ice pal, but won't be manually riding them, like fighting a dragon type summoning Ultra Raid boss, for example, which is a very common typing for these. So both of these pals are great depending on the situation. Frostallion can only be captured as an alpha pal in the wild and then can be bred with itself to create more, whereas Bastigor can be bred from the combination of Frostallion itself and Anubis as the second parent. Then we have dragon pals, and if we are counting partner skills that require the player to ride them, then it's actually Blasament Ryu now for two main reasons. The first is that he has the same partner skill as base Blasament but for dragon, so he boosts dragon element attacks while being ridden, including his own attacks. The second is that because he is dual type, half dragon, half fire, he can actually get a damage boost from running Kelpsie Ignis in your party as non-active pals, which boosts the damage of any pal that has the fire type in your party passively. That said, for situations where you aren't riding, Xenolord, the new level 60 raid boss pal, is the best pure statted dragon pal in the game, so for use against summoning altars, creating things like Belenoir or Belenoir Libero, which are weak to dragon, Xenolord is technically the best to take it down easily, even though that is of course a bit out of order because you're doing earlier level raids with the highest level raid pal. That said, Blasament Ryu comes exclusively from its raid fight, and Xenolord also exclusively comes from its own raid fight too. After that we have dark pals, and the best dark pal generally speaking is Shadowbeak. This pal enhances the power of dark element attacks while ridden as its pal skill, which is a very strong bonus effect there, but then it just hits great stats in its own right and has absolutely fantastic pal exclusive skills in the Divine Disasters. Close seconds for dark are Frostallion Noct, who just doesn't have pal exclusive skills that can compare to Shadowbeak's, and Belenoir Libero, who may have ended up winning if it could get the legend passive, but because it can't be bred into from other pals, you can't put legend on Belenoir Libero. As for how to get Shadowbeak then, the earliest breeding combination is Kitsune, which is found at night in the sort of middle little cold area, and then Astagon, who can be fought as an alpha on the Volcano or bred into a little bit earlier too. Then our final element type is neutral, and the strongest pal with this typing is by a pretty good margin, Selene, especially after the Feybreak update, and this pal is from Sakurajima. Selene enhances the damage of both neutral and dark attacks while it is mounted, but has much better pal exclusive neutral skills than it does dark skills. As well, it has great stat potential, and while its original addition to the game it wasn't capable of having the legend passive, it can now be bred into through the combination of Palladius, who gets legend when caught in the wild, and Lunaris, meaning that you can in fact get Selene with the legend passive now, which is a big potency increase for this pal and makes it even better than it already was in this slot. That said, this pal is on Sakurajima, or as mentioned, can be bred into with the combination of Lunaris as well as Palladius. Then for a final slot of sort of bonus mentions really, I tried to work today around the strongest individual pals for each typing. There are of course stronger pal combinations specifically and through things like a full team of Swee and Sweepa, or Beegard and Elizabee at the helm, which all synergize with each other extremely well, but that feels like overkill based on what we're talking about today, based on what the topic is. That said, something that does overlap super well with this concept is stuff like Gobfin, which are a fantastic passive party filler, their partner skill giving bonus player damage just for being in the party, and player damage is very strong in Feybreak if you actually build around it. That said, let's say you know you're going in on like the Bastigor tower, in Feybreak specifically, so you bring one meaty fire pal, like a Blasphemous that I mentioned earlier, and then what are your other slots going to be? Are they going to be like backup pals in case your main one dies? Well, I mean, they could be. Or you could bring 4 Gobfin, trust in your one main pal that you have out, and then use the Gobfin to boost your own player damage for the assist. The other option for this are the various pals that boost specific pal element types. For example, Kelpsie Ignis, who I mentioned earlier, passively boosts the power of fire pals while it is in your party. So 4 Kelpsie Ignis passive in the party, and the Blasphemous at the helm is a super strong fire team. Or the same with Blasphemous Ryu at the helm is a really strong dragon team, surprisingly, and there are other pals with this similar partner skill, but for different element types as well. So that's something to consider for your non-active pals that can still make a very big difference in your party, and that I definitely wanted to mention here. That just about does it for today then, everyone. The 10-ish best pals in all of Palworld, with a focus on the best pals for each specific elemental type to help you type match your opponents better, as well as just a mention of the various pals that can passively boost your damage a ton when not actually on the field itself. I hope you all enjoyed this then, and if you have any more suggestions of your own, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice. to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.